Okay, is there any?
Is that the meeting now? The meeting's now recording, so
Okay.
I'll continue to take the sedierent of the Road Safety Forum on the 31st of January 2023. Okay, I can see that we have present Councillor Anderson, Councillor Barker. No. Also present we have Councillors Cowie and Councillor Johnson-Dempsey. Councillor Dewar is also present, as is Councillor Kerr, Councillor Mars, Councillor McCreary, Councillor McLachlan and Councillor Ray. Also in attendance today we have a number of officers as well as Sergeant Lorna Hinchelwood from Police Scotland. So with that I'll pass you back to the Chair to commence today's business. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. First item on the agenda is declarations of interest. Is there any declarations of interest? No. Item 2 on the agenda is the minutes of the previous meeting. I'm going to move that as a correct minute. Is there anyone? Is there any questions or comments from the minute? Item 3 on the agenda is the safety camera assessment process, and that's pages 11 to 18. And who's taking us through that? Stuart. Thanks, Stuart.
Thank you, Chair. Of safety camera locations within South Lanarkshire and the site selection process. Section 3 of the paper set out the background. The safety camera programme is a collision reduction initiative, and safety cameras are not driven by any revenue generation. All monies and fines that are paid go to the Scottish Courts and Tribunal Service and in turn to the Scottish Government. The safety camera West Unit covers South Lanarkshire and paragraph 3.3 shows the other local authorities that make up the West area. Cameras are sited in the areas where there's most need in terms of casualty reduction and deployed primarily where they'll have the greatest casualty and collision reduction potential. Section 4 of the papers identifies the different types of camera and these are fixed speed cameras, vector spot speed cameras, mobile cameras, average cameras and red and speed cameras and details of each of those, as I said, are on paragraph 4.1 of the papers. Each camera enforcement location is located within a site or on a route where there has been an identified history of collisions where speed or red light running is an issue. All camera locations can be found on the Safety Camera Scotland website. Within South Lanarkshire we have 4 fixed, 6 mobile and 1 average speed camera, and these are listed in paragraph 5.1 of the papers. It should be noted that a new mobile camera was proposed for Carlisle Road and Fernagare as part of the previous site selection exercise, and this was reported to the Forum back on the 28th of January 2020. Due to development within the locus of the area where the camera was to be sited, it was unable to be established and no suitable alternative location exists or could be created for an enforcement vehicle to be situated. This has been thoroughly considered by the Council and the Safety Camera Unit. The site has been reassessed and vehicle speeds have reduced and collisions and casualties have also fallen. Over recent years, further residential development has been completed and there's also a retail property. It should also be noted that traffic volumes have also increased. Given the characteristics of the corridor that have changed, there's no longer an enforcement vehicle to be placed. There are significantly less speed-related accidents resulting in fewer casualties. The criteria for a safety camera is no longer met. Paragraph 5.4 sets out what measures are currently in place in terms of engineering measures, signing and lining, etc. And police officers have also undertaken regular speed enforcement initiatives on Carlisle Road, and they consider there to be very high compliance with the speed limit. Given ongoing concerns, the Council and Police Scotland will continue to work in partnership. The location will continue to form part of Police Scotland's enforcement considerations commensurate with their other duties. Moving to section 6 of the papers, in addition to the above, there is also the potential for short-term mobile enforcement deployments where required. These are generally limited to a maximum period of 1 month, where prior agreement reached between the camera manager, the local police and the council. Section 7, the selection criteria. These sites are selected using criteria that's set out in the Safety Camera Scotland Handbook. And these are also through extensive site selection discussions. The minimum requirements are set out in Appendix 1 of the papers, and obviously evidence of collisions that are speed-related form the basis of this. Provisions in criteria were brought in 2018-2019, which saw an increase in the site selection assessment process. Weighting allocations to collisions on severity were included within this process, in addition to scoring factors relating to vulnerable road users. Moving to section 8, the site selection process, it's undertaken in 2 parts. The first part, the camera unit manager identifies a large list of potential sites that fulfil minimum requirements. These are then discussed in stage 2 of the process with ourselves, and again, a short list of sites for potential action are identified. In terms of the latest site selection process, a stage 2 meeting was held in November last year, and this reviewed a small number of potential sites. Following lots of discussion, no sites are to be taken forward within South Lanarkshire for the coming year. In terms of this particular paper, there are no employment implications or financial implications. There's no significant implications in terms of climate change, etc. And this report does not introduce any new policy, therefore no impact assessment is required. So the forum is asked to note the contents of this paper. Back to you, Chair.
Thanks, Stuart. Thanks for the report. I remember when it was decided that the mobile safety cameras would be put in place in Fernigear, and there was discussions about that, and there was an official from Safety Camera Scotland. It's just a shame that there's not someone here today, now that they're being removed, or not being removed because they've never been there in the first place. So it's a bit unfortunate that South Lanarkshire Council have been left to deliver this potentially bad news for the local community. Being a local councillor for the area, I'm bound to get some inquiries from constituents about this, but the statistics are what they are, and we've got to accept what Safety Camera Scotland are saying. So, is there anyone else got any questions or comments? Councillor Anderson.
Thanks, Chair. Sadly, there was a recent death on the Joe Carriageway in East Kilbride, which isn't the first, unfortunately, in that area. And it is notorious for boy racers, racing probably all the way from Straven right through to Thornton Hall. And there has been numerous accidents on these roads. And at one time, the railings at the roundabouts, they had railings there, to take them away and put in concrete wall to prevent them crashing through and maybe killing or injuring pedestrians. So I'm really surprised that there's never been even the mobile unit allocated to there, or a fixed one there, or the average speed cameras, because it is more accidents waiting to happen. And sadly, it might result in more deaths. And I'm just wondering if that would be considered for some form of action to be introduced there to try and prevent these. Thanks.
Who wants to respond to that? Stuart?
The A726, or parts of the A726, are part of the trunk road network. And I think the incident that you're referring to, there's been 2 fatalities on the trunk road network over the last year. I spoke to the Transport Scotland's manager, as well as the consultant who's managing and maintaining that part of the network just before Christmas. These particular incidents, the causation factors were not necessarily related to coming in and treating them, but we did have a wider conversation about how these sections of road are being driven or being crossed. And it's likely that in the coming months we'll have further discussions, particularly in relation to active travel corridors, which may have an impact on the characteristics of these sections of road that you're referring to. In terms of the site selection criteria, there is quite onerous selection criteria for safety cameras. By going through that process, lots of sites are identified. Some of these sites are locations that we are already aware of and are treating or have treated recently. And we, as you'll be aware from previous papers that have been presented to the forum, we go through an annual assessment process, and where our process identifies locations, the camera unit selection process identifies locations, we then see what are common on both lists and then decide how to take particular sections of road forward. We are just in the process of concluding our annual assessment, and it's likely that that will be presented to the next Road Safety Forum.
I just ask that a bit of urgency is attached to this, because I feel I can hear the cars racing up and down that road from where I live, and I don't live right next to it, but it is well known for boy racers, and I think there's more accidents that happen. And part of the reason people are crossing it is, and I've been photographed, is because the underpasses flood so badly that people then tend to cross the main road as opposed to try to wade through 3 feet of water in most of the underpasses. That's maybe something you could talk to whoever's looking after the road, who are also responsible for the underpasses, as a road safety concern. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, John, for your questions and your comments. The flooding of the underpass is probably more a local constituent matter that you would deal with, but I'm interested in the measures that have been taken. Stuart, can you enlighten us, when the concrete was put in place instead of the railings, was that solely the trunk road network, or was there input from South Lanarkshire Council discussions?
The history behind the introduction of that is probably twofold. It probably relates to putting in, I'm going to say, more modern safety features compared to what was there when the roads were initially built way back in the 1960s. Where there's slopes adjacent to the road, or where there's underpasses, then there's more containment required. So I suspect that's what you've been referring to in terms of removal of barriers, getting replaced with something a bit more substantial in the form of concrete. The underpasses, again, it's a conversation that I've had with the Trunk Road Authority, because it's something that we obviously want to encourage people to travel actively. And the particular corridors that we're just about to embark on looking at solutions to, underpasses as part of that conversation, and I'm hopeful that over the next month or two we might be bringing forward a proposal that would see how underpasses can be upgraded and improved to ensure that they are attractive for people to use. We have undertaken some consultation in the past, particularly in East Kilbride, when it comes to what are the barriers to active travel. And one of those comments that came back, particularly from the community councils, if my memory serves me correct, was the fact of security. So things like lighting, the approaches, all these issues that people would tend to say, I'm not going to use that underpass because, we'll look at these individually and we'll come up with hopefully some solutions. And just to give you the comfort that we do that, the works that are currently ongoing on Churchill Avenue at the moment, we have looked at visibility from the road to where the remote footpath is, and we've come up with different landscaping options for that to make sure that anyone that's walking on the footpath can be seen from the road and vice versa.
Stuart, I mean, thanks for that. That's it's useful for John, I suppose, and other East Kilbride councillors, anyone pedestrians using that area. But it seems to me quite concerning that instead of having barriers, they put up concrete to protect. Maybe perhaps just as I'm understanding this, is this a roundabout, John, where the A726 and the A725 meet at the Nell? Is that about right? So if traffic are travelling that fast, and if they're going to have an accident there, it's potentially going to injure people onto the roundabout. So you put concrete in place. Stuart, you know, again, it's a trunk road network, but is there something that we can do as a local authority to, because on our road, just speaking about Fernagare, the different signage that you put on and so on. Now I know the road you're talking about, John, it's a 50 miles an hour speed limit, I think. But it's just an ordinary looking dual carriageway. So if there's people travelling at such speeds and there's potential for such dangerous accidents, they need to put concrete up to protect other road users. Is there another way of tackling this, Stuart? If it was one of our roads, what would we do? But it's not. So what can we do in conjunction with the trunk road network? Colin?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think it's probably important for us to understand that, you know, one, it isn't a council road network here. The barriers that would have been put in place will have been, as Stuart kind of touched upon there, will have been to the appropriate standards. I don't think it's probably as simple to say as because of potential for speeding vehicles, they put up concrete barriers to stop them. I think it just happens to be a coincidence. So, well, any new modern infrastructure, if it's around about, I think we're talking about, it's just been upgraded. The guardrail, the pedestrian guardrail that would have been there before, would have been fit for purpose in the 60s, 70s. They've done upgrading works, but we can certainly take that back. Stuart's obviously got dialogue open with Transport Scotland and colleagues. We can better understand what they've done. But I don't think it's as simple to say the concrete barriers have been put in to speeding traffic, because that isn't the case. What will have happened is we'll have put in appropriate new modern containment, as we do. Some of our bridges we're upgrading, you'll see they're looking a bit more substantial, a bit more chunky in terms of the vehicle restraint capabilities, if I can call it that. But certainly we can take it back, have a chat. As Stuart said, there's obviously been dialogue with the 2 recent accidents. I think the causations of those accidents doesn't necessarily tie in exactly with the road environment. There may have been other factors linked to the cause of those accidents. But like anything, we'll have that dialogue. If there's anything we can do to complement what the Trunk Road Authority are doing, we'll look to do so. And perhaps, maybe not the next forum, maybe a future forum, we could consider having somebody for Transport Scotland along to have a chat. You know, the trunk road through East Kilbride and through South Lanarkshire is obviously a key part of what we do here, because accidents on there are discussed at this kind of forum. So perhaps we can have a consideration of that, Chair, and we'll also have dialogue with you prior to that. Thank you.
Thanks, Colin. Is there any other questions? Councillor Mars. Hi, Julia.
Thank you, Chair. I presume you can hear me.
Yes.
Thanks. Yes, I think this is an important point, and something that you know, I know that the public obviously feel very concerned about, and often mobile and permanent speed cameras are touted as a potential solution where there are road safety issues. And whilst I understand that, you know, actions can only be taken where there's evidenced and accepted risk of accidents and repeated accidents, obviously on resource means. I'm also really aware of the fact that we potentially have an underestimation of the number of collisions, thankfully, because they won't result in fatalities or serious injuries, and the fact that the police don't collect that data or may never be involved, similarly with the council. So I'm wondering how we deal with such situations, like locally to me, just very recently, a car travelling at speed, 2 cars travelling at speed, and one ended up actually into a residential garden. It was a serious situation, thankfully resulting in no serious injuries. So how are we collecting that data so that we are without going down the route of acting on every perception of risk. We're accurately collecting the collisions rather than the serious injury and the fatalities.
That's the age-old question, isn't it, Julie? Who's going to address that one? Colin?
Thank you, Chair. I'm on, yeah. So I think Councillor Mars has made a very good point, and it's a point that's been getting made for probably the last 20 odd years, and I mean that with the greatest respect, Councillor Mars. We simply don't have the resources or the luxury of tackling every location where an accident could happen, and I'm sure each and every one of you have had a letter from me or Stuart over the years. I can apologising that we can't do that. So the approach that we've taken and have been taken for the last 15, 20 odd years, recognised last year at the Scottish Transport Awards, as we are targeting the locations where we have known evidential causations for accidents. There are so many locations out there, and yeah, again, depending on where information is coming from, it can be accurate, it can be inaccurate, it can be an impression of what the accident caused. There have been a number of accidents even talked about today on the Kingsway and Queensway, which the causation would apparently be X, Y and Z, but perhaps it's not, because it's not been through an appropriate investigation by witnesses and the police. So the only source of information that we are currently using to target our accident investigation programme is the police accident records. And certainly in the short term, I don't see that changing. Clearly, I think the paper we brought to the last forum just kind of reiterated that whole policy approach about 3 accidents or more. We'll look into it. Now, if we suddenly get an area that's just appearing as being a bit problematic, for example, at the start of this year, there was some issues emerging up at Canderside, where there was a number of vehicles had left the road. We looked into it in a wee bit more detail. It wasn't one that was appearing on our accident records. But there's something not quite right with surfacing. We think there was maybe a spillage on the road. So we've looked into it a wee bit more, gathered some community intelligence, and we're probably going to kind of tackle something there in the spring, summer. So we're not ignoring it, but it will not form part of our core accident investigation programme, because quite simply, Councillor Mars and other councillors, we don't have the resources to tackle every accident location where there could be something happening. And sadly, it is the line that I don't like using. There are too many locations where people are being killed or seriously injured, and that must be where we put our money to. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Colin, and thanks, Councillor Mars. I don't have any other
Chair,
questions.
if I could
come
back.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, no, I do understand that point, and obviously it's down to resources, and whilst I know that we wouldn't necessarily have the resources to act in every situation, whereas the perception of risk and public concern, because sadly there are a proportion of drivers that behave badly and they travel. I'm also concerned of how we accurately have a picture of these collisions, and that's not to say that you would direct resources against one location or another. Obviously, you need to make we need to make a judgment about that in terms of resource. But if we are never collecting that data, I think that's a real difficulty. Like, for example, in my own ward, in my own village, then when traffic are leaving the carriageway potentially onto a riverbank, into residential gardens, then when the footways or residential property or very steep riverbanks are involved, I'm concerned that we don't actually have a note of those collisions at all. And whilst, by the grace of God, and I know we often have this concern raised by the public, by the grace of God, there was no deaths or serious injuries. But to have that information of how many collisions are occurring, to me, is a concern. Certainly, when council resources in one particular spot in my own village, we've spent £10,000 or thereabouts replacing lampposts and fences at exactly the same place. It seems illogical not to have at least a record of where these collisions are happening, even though fundamentally we will probably not have the resource to be able to direct to the less serious collisions.
Colin?
Thanks, Chair. Just to kind of come back in, certainly any information that any councillor or communities make us aware of, we are aware of, we collate. we consider. And clearly, you know, the point you've made there, Councillor Mars, you know, if there'll be locations where if we are repeatedly replacing a piece of guardrail or replacing lighting columns or replacing whatever piece of street furniture, that conversation will happen between our area manager, Grant Newbiggin, in your area, Martin Muir elsewhere, and there'll be a bit of a discussion between Stuart and his team just to understand what's happening here. Is it just regular common accidents that are happening, or is there something underlying to it? So we don't proactively go out and collate accidents. You know, I don't need to. We've got enough happening that we know about. But if matters are brought to our attention, we are aware of them. As you know, we have a dedicated kind of traffic and transportation team. So routine, you know, traffic signs been knocked down, guardrail been knocked down. It's routine. It's happening all the time. There's maybe one-off incidents. Area managers will deal with that directly, respond to it, try and recover via insurance claims from the drivers if the driver's been at fault. But if there's accidents in locations that are continuing to appear, clearly the area manager wants that to be sorted at a higher level because it is coming out of his budget. So if there's something that can be done, whether that be surfacing, guardrail, changing the profile of the carriageway that reduces impacts and pressures in his maintenance budget, clearly we want to be doing that because that maintenance budget needs to be directed to core road maintenance, pothole surfacing as well. So we don't not gather it. We don't proactively go out looking for it. We don't have to because people tell us. And we do respond to it where we can, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, Julia.
As well as I'm going to be, I know. I don't think any of us can be comfortable with issues that you know are not collected.
It's I fully sympathise with you. I've raised the same point frequently with the same officers, and no disrespect to the officers, it is the answer that we get, and the situation is what it is. Resources are what they are. You know, in a perfect world, we wouldn't have all of these accidents. But as you know, Julia, in your previous role sitting here, the people directly contacting you from my area, the area that was just on the agenda, about the safety camera Scotland. So we both know, and I think every councillor has an area in their ward where people are raising concerns, have concerns of their own. There is accidents taking place. Accidents happen all over the place, but we have to deal with it where it's most importantly needed, where the money is most urgently needed to be spent in those areas. So thank you very much for your question. And I don't have any other questions or comments, so can we agree to note that item?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, next item on the agenda is item number 4, Bikeability Scotland Cycle Training, and that's pages 19 to 24. Sandy Carroll going to take us through this one. Sandy?
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to advise the Forum of the Bikeability Scotland scheme. So paragraph 3 in your paper sets out the background. Bikeability Scotland is a name for multi-level cycle training in Scotland, designed to give children the skills and confidence they need to cycle safely on the roads and encourage them to carry on cycling into adulthood. The 3 levels of Bikeability Scotland form part of the Scottish Government Cycle Action Plan for Scotland. South Lanarkshire Council currently deliver levels 1 and 2. In paragraph 3.3 will describe these levels. Bikeability Scotland level 1 covers basic cycling skills and is taught in a playground or in other traffic-free environments. It's typically delivered to children, pupils in primary 5. Bikeability Scotland Level 2 is the core training of the programme. It takes place in quieter, risk-assessed single-lane roads with simple junctions, and that's taken after a rider's demonstrated Level 1 skills. Level 2 is generally delivered in primary 6 and 7 and focuses on using roads in accordance with the Highway Code. There are 6 national standard Level 2 outcomes, and they are to identify and respond to hazards, comply with signals, signs and road markings, communicate with other road users, maintain suitable riding positions, start and stop in road journeys and negotiate junctions. There are 4 core main functions that pupils learn in Bikeability Scotland training, and those are making good and frequent observations, choosing and maintaining the most suitable riding position, understanding priorities in the road, particularly at junctions, and communicating and signalling intentions clearly to other road users. Paragraph 4 of the paper details the school participation and instructor training. So all primary schools are invited to participate with Bikeability Scotland Level 1 and Level 2 training during each academic year. Contact is typically made at the start of the new term in August for the autumn-winter period and is then reissued in January for the spring-summer terms. To support the programmes, a free one-day Bikeability Scotland instructor training course is offered to all new or existing school trainers. This includes school staff, volunteers or any other interested parties looking to update their skills and knowledge. 2 instructor training courses were delivered by Traffic and Transportation Officers in the autumn 2022 term. From this, 22 candidates were successfully certified as Bikeability Scotland instructors on conclusion of these courses. This included classroom teachers, school support staff and parent volunteers. We anticipate approximately 4 further instructor training courses will be scheduled to take place during March and April 2023. School participation is collated at the close of the academic school year and the results from previous years are reported on the paper. So for the academic term 2021 to 22, we had a total of 1,560 pupils from 58 schools completed a Level 1 course and 1,594 pupils from 57 schools are subject to assessment at Level 2. You'll see from the slide in front of you the number of schools participated during each financial year from 2017-18 through to 21-22. You'll note a dip in participation during 19-20 and 2021, which was the result of the COVID pandemic. Paragraph 6 details the bike bank. This is a small fleet of bikes and helmets which was previously funded by Cycling Scotland and remains available to schools. This allows the provision of a small quantity of bikes on a loan basis to address individual cases of pupil inclusion. It's not the aim of this bike bank to provide a fleet of bikes, but rather to give opportunities to individual pupils where they may have been excluded due to issues such as not owning a bike, or the bike has not been properly maintained or cannot be transported to school. Paragraph 7 goes on to detail the Bikeability Coordinator, and that was a part-time Bikeability Coordinator that was appointed and started on the 9th November 2021. This post was funded by Cycling Scotland's Bikeability Support Plus grant for a 1-year period, and this post aids the promotion of Bikeability Scotland through the council area and provide additional support to schools where required. Further funding has since been received to extend this post by another year, and it's anticipated that additional funding will be sought to secure further post continuation. Employee implications, as mentioned above, the part-time temporary Bikeability Coordinator post was established following a successful bid to Cycling Scotland's Bikeability Scotland Support Fund. This was reported to the Forum's October 2019 meeting. This post is now in place and will support the Bikeability Scotland programme. Financial implications associated with the Bikeability scheme. The printed training materials that are provided, they're provided free of charge by Scotland, and a grant of £36,126 was awarded from Cycling Scotland's Bikeability Scotland Support Plus Fund to meet the cost of Bikeability Scotland instructor courses, third-party pupil training delivery, sundry items and funding of the Bikeability Coordinator post. There are no significant implications in terms of climate change, sustainability and environmental implications. It should be noted, however, that active and sustainable travel schemes may have a possible impact on the environment by reducing reliance on private vehicles, supporting South Lanarkshire's sustainable development and climate change strategy. Reduced motorised vehicle journeys will improve health and well-being whilst reducing reliance on fossil fuels and supports improvements in air quality through reduced vehicle emissions. There are no other significant risks associated with this project. This report does not introduce a new policy, function or strategy or recommend a change to the existing policy, function or strategy, and therefore no impact assessment is required. We hope you note the contents of this report. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Is there anyone get any? John Anderson's there. John?
Thanks, Chair. I notice there's fewer schools take part in this than there is take part in the calendar competition. So I'm just wondering if our education colleagues, we could talk to them and make it compulsory as part of the curriculum that they have people offering this to every school, because there'll be some schools who never ever get it. And I think that's quite important because there's a lot of benefits from the cycling, from the safety aspects as well. Because I know a lot of schools take kids swimming, give them swimming lessons because of the dangers of water. But I think this is maybe more important, or certainly as important. I'm just wondering whether we could make sure that every school does have it, that they have the people in place to train them, and it's offered every year to every kid. Can't force the kids to take part in it, but if we offered it, I think you'd get a much better response to it.
I don't think anyone would argue with the fact that it'd be great if every school did participate, but I wonder, Colin, can maybe, the school calendar competition, I might be wrong here, but is it not the case that just about every school participates in the school calendar competition as compared to the bikeability?
Yeah, as the comment meant, there's more schools take part in the calendar competition than bikeability. We do work closely with our education colleagues to promote the bikeability scheme, to work with them where there's maybe schools that are not taking part. It's obviously a bit more labour intensive, and it's a lot easier to take part in the calendar competition than it is in bikeability. But we do offer schools support and resources to get them started on the journey, and that's something that we're doing particularly now with our extra colleague, with the bikeability coordinator, to target the schools that have not taken part previously and see what we can do to support them and bring them on board. You will have noted within the paper the reference to third-party delivery. Through Cycling Scotland funding, that is where we can contract the services of professional trainers to go into a school and deliver the training, to see and allow the school to see it taking place and to show them how they can then self-maintain that in the future. So we're very much working with our education colleagues and our Cycling Scotland colleagues as well. They're quite supportive and do a lot of engagement work with us as well. So it's something that we are proactively working with, and our education colleagues are very, very on board with it as well. To make it compulsory, I do not think would work because it's a lot challenging in one school compared to others. What we can do, though, is provide appropriate support to schools that are willing to come on board and take it forward.
John?
I mean, do you have conversations with the active school coordinators who'd maybe be able to deliver this if the schools themselves won't deliver it for any particular reason? I mean, would they go in? Because, again, maybe fall under their remit to keep the kids active, which is obviously one of the benefits as well as being safe.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, John. Colin, did you want to come back? No, that's fine.
I was just to confirm that, yeah, we'll work with our active school colleagues. Sometimes they do go into schools and do delivery or use their network of volunteers that they train. When we get instructor training courses on board that's offered out to school staff, community volunteers, volunteers committed and working with the school, and we also liaise with active schools as well. So we have trained some of their volunteers to deliver bikeability as well. So any avenue that's going to be beneficial for the schools to get people in to deliver to pupils, then we can certainly use them and use those avenues as well. And likewise, if there are any other avenues that maybe come on board or you're aware of locally, then please pass that information to us, and we could even put on bespoke training courses if that is something that would be beneficial to your area. Thank you.
Thanks, Colin. Colin Park, did you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think just to kind of add on to what Colin had said, because I think he'd probably covered most of it there. I think it's a great idea. You know, making it compulsory would be good. However, schools are under a lot of pressure to cover a lot of initiatives. Road safety is only one of them. But we will continue to work with David Hinchwood and his team, just to encourage them not only to do the kind of bikeability work, but we've got school travel plan work as well. So, which again, you need to have buy-in from the school community for that to be successful. And if you force it on people who are maybe not positioned to do it for whatever reason, makes it more challenging. But what we need to do is to try and make sure they are positioned to do that. So we'll continue, Chair, just to kind of build upon the work we've got to try and encourage as many schools to kind of take it up as we possibly can. Obviously, we had a lull during COVID. I don't have the figures up on my screen. I see Stuart's got them there. So, you know, pre-COVID, we had 64 schools taking part. Dropped down to 22, then 16. We're up at 72. So if you want to kind of spin a positive story here, we've got more schools taking part than we did before COVID. So if we can continue that direction of travel, hopefully this time next year we'll have more taking part, Councillor Anderson. But it's a very good point. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Colin. Julia, did you like to come?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I think it is an important point. I think obviously through COVID, the numbers indicate that less schools took part for obvious reasons. That things were different during that time. I think it is important to note how many schools do take part and the support that's available through the Bikeability scheme. I'm wondering whether something that could be looked at is the fact that parent volunteers and friends of schools tend to be volunteers associated with the children that are going through Bikeability, which is obviously in the more senior phase of their primary education. So those parents and friends of that school move on pretty quickly, and there's a constant turnover of volunteers and the requirement for going through the Bikeability course. So perhaps that's something to encourage parents with involvement in the younger school, although their child might not be taking part at that time. It gives you a sort of a longevity for the volunteers for that particular school to make sure it can take part. And when I was chair of road safety, I passed the qualification for Bikeability, so perhaps the chair would also like to go through the course, and you could offer your services to local schools as a qualified Bikeability instructor.
Well, you can come and show me the ropes, Julie. I'm quite happy to get involved.
Oh, I could show you the
I'd be
ropes,
more than
Chair.
happy to do that. Thank you very much. So sign me up for that then, please, whoever's responsible for Colin. Right, a volunteer. Thanks, Julia. So I don't have any other questions or comments, so can we agree to note item 4? Thank you very much. Item 5 on the agenda is education, training and public initiatives, and that's in pages 25 to 32. And back to Colin Smith for this. Colin.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to provide some examples of the ongoing education, training and publicity initiatives in South Lanarkshire. So starting from section 3. The first initiative detailed is the Junior Road Safety Officer Scheme, which is currently being taken up by 108 schools across the South Lanarkshire area during this academic year. This is one of our kind of core schemes where pupils take on peer education within their school community. So they will promote national initiatives and campaigns, as well as looking at what local concerns and local things that they can be involved in as well. Some of the things that they might do is speak at school assemblies, run competitions, host notice boards within the school, and provide various messages within the school community. Section 3.1.3 details the open day that we held at Shatler Country Park in September 2021, and 68 schools joined us on that day, which was 164 GRSOs and 72 adult coordinators in attendance. So this day was to provide the pupils with the tools to use when they're back at school. So they had their organisers' pens, badges to make everything official, and there was various stations set up to provide them with road safety and active travel knowledge, campaign information, and to liaise with some of the partner organisations we had along on that day as well. So we had Police Scotland attend with a vintage vehicle, a safety camera partnership with their mobile enforcement vehicle, and a logistics company along to speak about large goods vehicles as well. And throughout the year, seasonal road safety information, activities and campaign information are provided to the schools so that they can then use that information and disseminate it locally. Next is the calendar competition at 3.2, that all schools are invited on an annual basis to take part in this competition, and they're given competition guidelines to follow. And there's topics for 5 individual age groups that they can look at and then devise their own illustration and logo. So the topics for the previous year are detailed in 3.2.2. And for the last competition, we received 3,133 entries from 100 schools to the traffic and transportation section. We then whittle them down to the top 5 in each group, and then there's a judging panel to decide the overall winner. So overall winner this year was Christopher Agnew from St Mary's Primary School in Hamilton, with his winning design, which you can see on the screen. And the slogan is "Cross where you can be seen, not in between." So guidelines for the 2023 competition will be issued in May, and then schools will get a few reminders along the way as well. Next in section 3.3 is Park Safe. This is the focus of a new leaflet and supporting resources designed by our section to focus on points relating to the school entrances and school keep clears, safe speeds, planning your journey, etc. So inconsiderate and dangerous parking and driving experiences are things that we are often reported to our section and likewise to yourselves within local wards. So this leaflet just intends to inform drivers of the risks and expectations of why certain driving practices are unsafe and to remind them of their responsibilities on the school run as well. As well as a leaflet, there's social media images, outdoor banners which are available to schools to support the Park Safe message. And schools can promote this within their social media platforms, school newsletters, as well as also displaying and putting out the printed and campaign materials that we do have available. 3.4 parking buddies, that just shows you these parking buddy signs which we have available to schools as well, which I suppose in some shape complement the Park Safe initiative also. These are obviously very visual when they're placed out by the roadside, informing drivers of their need to think before parking in certain places. And we've got signs with a few different messages on them as well, just as a visual way to remind drivers to be mindful of how they are behaving on the school run. So these signs are available to schools to borrow for a fixed period of time, and they've been very beneficial and created quite a lot of discussion within school communities. And some schools have even went so far as to purchase their own signs so as they can use them on an ongoing basis and help with any issues they have outside their school environment. 3.5 details the Sustrans Big Walk and Wheel, which is a UK inter-school walking, wheeling, cycling, scooting challenge. So schools are invited to register for this challenge and record their active travel journeys to school at a set period of time. So the challenge last year was between the 21st of March and the 1st of April. And really it's a big push on active travel at that time to get as many people walking and cycling and wheeling as possible and out of private vehicles. On registration, schools get access to an online portal as well as lots of educational and promotional materials which they can use. So the challenge has different categories for school size, etc. So there's a bit of fairness with it. Section 3.5.5 details that 2 South Lanarkshire schools won their categories last year. Wester, Overton and Straven and St John's Primary School in Blackwood. So they were winners of the competition and did very well. And obviously reported good signs of walking and cycling and a reduction of congestion and driving outside their schools. 3.6 details the Sustrans annual travel survey, which is a hands-up survey that takes place the second week of September each year, where simply across the school network, across Scotland, pupils are asked, how do you come to school today? And it's a very quick snapshot survey of travel modes. This data is used by Sustrans to collate their findings on travel modes across Scotland for the Scottish Government, and also locally we can use that information for various purposes that we have as well, one of them being school travel plans to monitor modal share for individual schools. In 2021, the Hands Up survey had 24,759 school and nursery children take part. So it's a big spread of pupils that take part within this survey here. The results are shown in 3.6.4, and it shows that travelling to primary and secondary school by active or public transport was recorded at 59%. And that was a slight decrease in the previous year when it was 59.8%. You can see from section 3.6.5 the national results, and the similar pattern was experienced there as well. So this year, the travel survey will be promoted to all schools yet again, and we're waiting for the 2022 data to be released. So we're expecting that at any moment. And again, this data can be used locally with our schools for school travel plan purposes, as well as information for funding bids, etc., when we're looking at active travel promotion. Section 3.7 details the mobile vehicle activated sign that the Traffic and Transportation section have available to help with speed awareness visits within educational establishments. This sign can measure the speed of approaching vehicles, display the speed on the sign, as well as an accompanying message, which can be interchangeable. It can be a useful tool to slow down traffic outside schools, as well as an educational approach to involve pupils, junior road safety officers and the school community, to get them on board to then speak to the wider school community about safer speeds at and around the school. One of the first schools to receive a visit with this new sign was Kirkfield Bank Primary School, who you can see pictured on the PowerPoint here. Roadstars is the latest digital resource from Road Safety Scotland, which you can see in section 3.8. And that features interactive road safety missions, which our young people can be involved in. It's another way just to help our young people practice and learn road safety out and about, and also within the educational environment. The resources include lots of things, but including a song which is very catchy, and schools really get on board with that as well. So Roadstars is contained within the learning website from Road Safety Scotland. The link is provided within your papers, and this is promoted to all our educational establishments at any opportunity that we have. The final section on our paper is 3.9, detailing the mini-COP event that was run by Education Resources back in October last year. We as our section took part in this event by promoting active travel and cycling and bikeability specifically. We provided bikes and helped with instructors to take pupils out on a short bike ride, but really the ethos behind this was to promote bikeability and the benefits from active and safe and sustainable travel. So this activity created quite a lot of interest, and we certainly signed up a few schools for bikeability, as well as a few people for instructor training courses as well. At the close of this event, school attendees were asked to commit to sign a pledge and to raise awareness across the rest of their school to promote safe, active and sustainable travel, and also the commitment to climate change at that point. In terms of the paper, there's no employee implications, and in terms of financial implications, items associated with this report were met from the Council's revenue budget. There's no other major implications in terms of this paper, and the forum is asked to support and promote the contents of the paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colin. Very informative and detailed report. I've got a couple of questions myself, but I'll open it up to anyone else who... I see Susan Kerr. Susan, would you like to come in?
Oh yeah, hi. Yeah, I just wanted to say that made a really exciting and joyful read of that report. When I was looking at it, you know, over the past couple of days, it was really heartening to see the work that's very impressive, the work that's been put in there. And I know from my past days in teaching many years ago now, how it's come on leaps and bounds. It's incredible. I can't believe how it's come on. You know, like just that's been put in there, and how like the children in particular, the pupils in schools, you know, are owning this, as you were saying earlier, Colin, like, you know, the schools are buying into it. Yes, they're buying into it, and it's, you know, that's saying education, 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 this is the right way to go. And just as a wee sort of comparison, just I heard in the news this morning, this is the 40-year anniversary of Clunk Click Every Trip. So, you know, look how long that took, and none of us would get in a car now without putting your seatbelt on. You don't even think about it anymore. That took a long time. This is just really exciting for me to see, you know, what's going on in schools, how it's working, and really especially pleased to see West Roverton mentioned as was it the first in Scotland? Yeah. Now, I spent many, many, many years in the past going up there to that school with my own children, and it was horrendous. So that is really good. And yes, I've noticed the difference, and people have told me that I know that live up round there, how much quieter it is in the morning without cars being there. And yes, the children are travelling to school in active travel. So brilliant news. Thanks for that report.
Thank you very much, Susan. That's very welcome, and that's quite a shock, isn't it? 40 years. I remember that advert on the TV like it was yesterday. I'll bring in Julia. Julia Mars. Oh, you came and you went, Julia. there we go.
Thank you, Chair. I was a very young child when Click Every Click, every
Those are.
just put that in there. Thank you for this report. I think it is a really heartening that 59% of our young people are travelling actively to school. I'm conscious also that there will be, particularly in the rural area,
I don't know if you can hear, Julia, but you seem to have frozen our screens.
Can you hear me
Oh, you're
better
back
now,
now.
Chair?
There, I hear you now. Carry on, Julia.
Oh, good. Thank you. I'll start. I'll be brief, but start again. I'm heartened that 59% of our young people travel actively to school, and that can only be encouraged. And hopefully it'll rise even further. I'm conscious for the rural area, however, how many schools where virtually every child travels by either school bus or private vehicle, simply because it's unsafe to travel to school, or distance would prevent them travelling any other way. So I'm wondering that, first of all, whether these figures are sort of moderated to take into account where a portion of the school journey might be active, whether that's joining a point for a school bus or walking from a certain point, or what we can do to try and encourage sustainable travel, although it may not be walking, scooting, or feeling if it's not appropriate.
Colin?
Yeah, thanks for that comment. Certainly in terms of the Hands Up Scotland survey that takes place annually, one of the options for that is park and stride, where pupils park slightly further away and then walk the remaining distance. So that can work in certain circumstances where travel by vehicle is required. Obviously, with some schools, if it's school transport, that's maybe not going to be an option. For them, certainly schools do make up with that in whichever way they feel is possible, and it's going to be meaningful. So sometimes it could be kind of golden mile laps round about the playground, so as the active travel message is still getting to pupils, are still having the benefits of physical activity. And the message of sustainable travel and why it's important is educated and it's put over to them, even though they're not specifically able to do that within their school journey. Certainly in terms of school bus travel, it's also another area that is included within many of the Road Safety Scotland educational initiatives. It's not all about walking, it's not all about cycling. It's about seatbelt wearing, it's about walking in rural roads, it's about bus travel as well, and how all these modes need to be safe and what pupils can do to keep themselves safe during these. So certainly all these aspects should be covered. And certainly when it comes to our school travel plan work, school travel plans are bespoke to the individual school. So if it's mainly school bus travel, then that will be a major focus of their school travel plan, and pupils will be brought on board with the messaging that's going to be appropriate to them during that process as well. I hope that helps. Thank you.
Thanks, Colin. Margaret Cowie?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to ask about some of the resources that are available for the schools, like the parking buddy signs, the VAS, the mobile vehicle activated sign. Would it be possible to get some of these brought along to a meeting so that we can visually see them or get us pictures?
Yeah, good shout. Are you scribbling away there, Stuart? Is that something we could do then? Yeah?
Do that,
Yeah,
that's not an issue. We can bring them along next time just so as you get the visuals there, not a problem.
Thanks very much.
Great, thanks.
I wanted to ask Colin, page 28 and 29 at 364 and 365, those two tables. It says all schools excluding nurseries, and there's some good figures there about, what's the term you've used? Either walking or using transport, but or cycling or whatever. But the driven number is that is the one that I think it concerns most people, or most councillors at least, when they get complaints about cars being parked at schools. Now it does say here that it's all schools. I'm going to ask the question though. Do you have any figures comparing primary schools to high schools? Just roughly, just kind of broadly speaking.
Yeah, we do have a full data set for the annual travel survey. So obviously when you're getting data, you can divide the pie up in many different ways.
Yeah.
So we do have that information. Certainly when it comes to the driven figure, I believe over the last couple of years it has written down slightly.
Yeah.
Some figures in front of them, but it's the same figures as in the paper for all schools excluding nursery. And between 2020 and 2021, the driven figure did go down ever so slightly. So that's the kind of pattern we're seeing, we're hoping to see continue. But likewise with this survey, it's a different batch of schools every year. You know, unless every school took part, then you've not got the same data set. So really the only true reflection you can do is individual schools and their data on a year-on-year basis. So that's really just a snapshot across Scotland first of all, and then across South Lanarkshire.
Okay, thanks for that. And my next point, and it's something that bothers me quite a lot about not scooters, but electric scooters. Because anyone in here, I hope, will know that electric scooters are illegal. And I wonder if the schools are aware, because a lot of people don't know. And it's surprising how many people don't know, including grown-up people, adult people who use these electric scooters to go back and forward to their work. I mean, to them it seems like a very good way to get back forward to your work. And one of the difficulties we've got, it's not illegal in England apparently, but it is illegal here. So I just wonder if you get any stats or figures about how many children have been using electric scooters to go to school, and if teachers are aware of it and forbid that use. If you get any... My eyes rolling here.
In terms of electric scooters, I don't have any information specific on electric scooters. When we do these surveys, it's just scooter as a general.
Yep.
I think electric scooters are one of the kind of upcoming things. Obviously, and certainly down south, there are these trials where they are legal, and they're looking at things there. I do know that Police Scotland have had a campaign regarding electric scooters and putting out their information as to the legality of them.
Yeah.
That's certainly something that we can consider and see if it's an appropriate thing. We can also expand to our school network and get that information disseminated through them as well. So we'll certainly take that forward as a wee action.
My concern is that they are 100% illegal. Under no circumstances anywhere public can you use an electric scooter. The only time you can use it is purely on private land. But they're so popular now, and again, it's a difficulty because not everyone is aware. It's like some of the new highway code rules that's come out about where pedestrians can cross at junctions. When I stop to let people cross, they look at me as if I'm daft because they don't know why I'm stopping there. And then you get cars behind tooting their horn because they don't know why I'm stopping there either. Introduce new rules and laws, but not everyone is aware of them. But the concern about electric scooters quite often is they go really fast. Councillor Razak raised the issue about electric bikes because they're quiet and some of them, I don't know if they come out of the shops like this or if they tweak them, but they can go at some ridiculous speeds for a scooter, and they're very, very unstable because they've got small wheels. So they're a danger to the users and they're also a danger to other people. But not everyone is aware of that, and I just wonder, the point of my question is if schools were aware, and I wonder if that's something you might maybe just want to pass on to schools. If you're going to be using scooters, make sure that the children don't use electric scooters, because I know that lots of them are bought over Christmas period. As you said, it's becoming a very popular thing. However, a 100% illegal thing that not everyone is aware of.
We can pass that information on.
Thank you very much. So we don't have anyone else, so can we agree to note the recommendations? That's let me get it. The content of the report be noted and future road safety education, training and publicity activity in South Lanarkshire should be supported. That's the word. Agreed. Okay. Item 6 on the report, the agenda is Police Scotland, Lanarkshire Division Road Safety Update, and that's pages 33 to 36. I'm going to ask Lorna Hinshaw, the Local Authority Liaison Officer, to address this report. Lorna, are you there? There we go. Hi, Lorna.
Morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So yeah, I'll quickly run through the report. I'm not going to read it verbatim. I'm sure you're all big enough to read the report yourself. The reporting period, October to December, we had a national Get Ready for Winter campaign. And again, that's due to the deterioration in the weather, road conditions, how it affects our pedestrians, cyclists. So a lot of it was done through social media. Our road policing officers were out there stopping vehicles, you know, just kind of general checks that we should be doing, lights, tyres, fluid, washer fluid levels, and make sure people had their windscreens clear in the morning. The festive drink and drug driving campaign, that was from the 1st of December to the 2nd of January 2023. Speaks for itself, highlighting the dangers of consuming alcohol and drugs. Through that period, there were 62 drivers detected for drink or drug driving offences during the whole South Lanarkshire campaign. It should also be noted that in Lanarkshire as a whole, we've seen the most amount of drug drivers. It could be down to the proactive work of our officers. 4.2, the stats I had prepared were from April 22 to November 22. That was because I didn't have the stats at that point. So if I could update them from April to December, if that's in order.
Yeah.
So for our speeding, for speeding, this year, April to December 22, there was 346 speeding offences. The same period last year was 562. So that's a reduction of 38.4%. Our disqualified driving, April to December 22 was 56. It was the exact same last period. Driving licence offences, April to December 22 was 198. The same period last year was 251. So that's a reduction of 21.1%. Insurance, 552. And it was 570, same period last year, reduction of 3.2%. Seat belts were 29, April to December 22, where it was 42. Same period the previous year, which was a reduction of 31.0. And lastly, our mobile phones were 60, April to December 22, 49, same period last year, which is actually up 22.4%. So that's the most accurate stats that we have. And just quickly, our road police are continuing to service our local complaints that come in. They get the way the complaints are handled, they get a month allocated per complaint. Community policing will continue to service the local speeding complaints where they can in conjunction with their other daily work. There has been a lot, you're probably aware of the car meets that have been taking place across South Lanarkshire. We've done a lot of work around the car meets to kind of target them at source, getting them when they're coming into the areas, and dispersing them, albeit we have often dispersed them into other places. We are seeing a positive engagement with some of the drivers that regularly attend. The only other thing I wanted to tell you about was about funding. It was secured from the Community Safety Partnership in September. The road policing officers secured funding to do a close pass initiative. So they did that across South Lanarkshire. It was well received, and it was just to kind of highlight the dangers around close pass to our cyclists on the road. And that's all I really have. If there's any questions?
Thank you very much, Lorna. Quite a positive report about the reductions, but very, very alarming about the increase in the mobile phone convictions. It doesn't surprise me in the slightest, though, because I see it so much myself. Has anyone? Councillor Ray, Norman?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I was just going to ask a question about the figures in 4.2. There are some encouraging ones there, as well as obviously less encouraging with the mobile phone. I was just wondering, for context, was the sort of level of enforcement activity similar in both years, or is it a complete sort of like-for-like comparison? Or?
You're probably looking at like for like comparison, because you know, we're seeing more volumes of traffic on the road again. I mean, it may well be, it depends as well when our road policing have the capabilities of getting out there to carry out enforcement, you know, if they're not taken away to inquiries or serious accidents. Also, our local officers are more inclined to get involved in things like your mobile phones, seatbelts, insurance, because they've got the handheld device that they can detect these. So yeah, it's probably a like for like, just proactivity, I would say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. John Anderson.
It's not actually in this report, Chair, but it's something you mentioned earlier, but you stopping to allow pedestrians to cross at junctions. I'm just wondering, has anybody in South Lanarkshire been charged for not stopping? Because it happens quite a lot.
For not stopping at a junction?
Yeah, to allow a pedestrian to cross and the driver's turning left.
I don't know off the top of my head. I don't have figures for that, but I can certainly see if I can find out for you.
I would imagine it might be pretty low. Just for clarity, in case anyone doesn't know, if the new rule is that if you're going into or coming out of a road, you must stop to allow pedestrians to cross that road. So, for example, a side road, if you're turning right or turning left into a side road. Now, you mentioned turning left, John, but even if you're turning right, if there's a pedestrian waiting to cross the road that you're turning right into, so it's going into or coming out of a road, regardless of what direction. And it's difficult at times. Being a driving instructor, I've got to make sure that my pupils are well aware of it, because if they don't stop when they're on a driving test, they'll fail. So you need to, that's the best education that driving instructors can give to new learners or learner drivers. But I think it's safe to say, and I'm just right off the top of my head, I bet there's 90% of the people who use the roads aren't aware of this new rule, and it causes frustration with other drivers getting upset behind people who are waiting to allow pedestrians to cross, and then pedestrians are standing looking at you like because they're not aware. So I think there's a bit of education to be done on this, Lorna, to make this more aware to pedestrians and road users. But I wouldn't imagine, I'd be very surprised if anybody had been convicted of it yet, because it's a very, well, it's a year now it's been in place, but it's still very early in the process, I imagine. But it would be interesting, Lorna, if you could get that figure. I'd be interested myself if there has been any charges or convictions.
Yeah, I'll see if I can get that data. Obviously, the new changes in the highway code, ourselves and South Lanarkshire have done our best to kind of promote the changes. A lot of it's through social media. So,
yeah.
But anyway, I'll see if I can get that data for you.
Mm-hmm. You know, the reason why I know that electric scooters were illegal is because it was a Police Scotland advert on social media, and I've seen it a few times, not a lot. But how do you get that message out there? How do you get these new rules and the message about these things right across the public? I know it's difficult, it's hard. The government make new changes to the rules and people are expected to know it, but no one, you know, maybe it's a bit blanket to say no one, but most of the times when people pass their driving test, they've got their licence, they never pick up a highway code book, and I'm not suggesting everybody should do that, but when there's new changes in the way that you drive, people just aren't aware of it. It's only people who are learning at the time, and that's just very young. So these new changes are mostly ignored because people don't understand. I mean, I'll take for example, you know, you asked John about the conviction rate. I remember a number of years ago, it was a police initiative to say, if you stop on a yellow box junction, you're not allowed to do it. But if you do it now, you're going to get charged. If you sit on the middle lane of a motorway when you're not overtaking anyone, you're going to get charged. Now, I was coming back from Motherwell just the other day there, and there was a car in the right lane, and I was in the left lane. The car was doing about 50, it's a 70 limit. There was a traffic police car sitting in the right-hand lane behind the other car that they couldn't overtake. And they stayed in the right lane from Motherwell at the traffic lights, right to the roundabout at Hamilton. And the car went one way and the police car went the other way. So the traffic car was behind the car, clearly doing something wrong. And they didn't do anything about it. No, I'm not having a go at the police here, Lorna, or anyone, but you know, it's okay saying, oh, this is the law now, we're going to charge you for this. But unless it's backed up, and again, resources is an issue. We spoke about things earlier about accidents in areas where people say that, you know, so the department's got to work within the most serious, and the police are the same. The police resources are stretched as well. So if you had to go around trying to get convictions for all of these offences, you need to double the police force. But it's just a bit sad that they make rules, they make changes, they say they're going to convict people, but then nothing really happens. So, Lorna, that'd be good. I would if you could get that, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a very low or zero.
I would imagine that's my kind of my thoughts. It's likely very, very low.
Yeah.
In regards to the, you know, social media and the electric scooters, I'm aware that, you know, a lot of the time the younger generation maybe use the scooters. Not always the case. They will not be looking at our social media. They won't follow us. You know, we are conscious of that. But I mean, again, looking at the wider advertising, television, radio, these kind of things are how we get these across. Education in schools, which the suggestion earlier on to take that to schools, you know, I support that. As for the road policing officers not stopping the vehicle, I can't comment that. I would
I know you can.
very surprised if the road traffic officer didn't stop them, and I could only assume that they were have another priority.
I was surprised myself. Maybe they were in a hurry to go somewhere else, I don't know. Anyway, so can we agree to note that report if there's no more questions?
Agreed.
Thank you, Lorna. Thank you, Margaret. Next item on the agenda is number 7. Now, do we have... So it's a Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, South Lanarkshire area road safety update, pages 37 to 40. Now, we were hoping that Gary Tudhope would be here, and he's not. So, without an officer here to address that report, you do have the report in front of you. If there's any questions, we can get those questions to the appropriate officer for the next meeting. Has anyone got any questions or any comments? No. So, that brings us to the end of the meeting. So, I have no items of urgent business, so thank you very much, everyone, for your attendance.
Thanks, Chair.
Sorry? Quick, aye. All right.